I say, what ho, this is Brian. Call me a simple guy who lives from day-to-day gardener, coming to you from the ray of sunshine that melts my frown and blows my blues away in scenic Hespeler, Ontario. And you are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode number 66. 1/6 away from the number of the beast. We are 1/6 away. Too bad it's the or a good thing, I suppose. It's the tough six. it's the big six, because I believe once we hit episode 666, the entire episode will implode, and I would have to start over again, as a Genesis podcast, as a Phil Collins podcast. Actually, it would have to start over as. So that's so we're at 66. We're a long way away from that 666. Thank goodness. And this is Ramble On Radio, the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast, not Phil Collins, the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I mentioned during the show. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. If you go to iTunes, leave a review. Give a star, give 3 stars, give 5 stars, and it helps with its product placement. It helps with the podcast's placement. You can go to Spreaker, follow Ramble On Radio on Spreaker. Same thing, helps with placement. And check it out at Ramble On Radio on YouTube. Also, I am Brian Dammit on YouTube, but that's just the audio. It comes from Spreaker, and I can't seem to turn it off. But if you go to Ramble On Radio, I've had the last couple up. I'm recording again. I'm videoing again on YouTube, and and follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook. The Facebook page was a bit alive this week. Some stuff going on. Go to Google Plus. You can also see the YouTube video on Google Plus. Apparently, it's all owned by Google now. I think everything's YouTube and well, Google's owned by Google, and then Google Plus and your car, and I believe they hold your mortgage, and there's something else that's Google, but yeah, Google's everything now, right? So it's getting crazy out there. And also go to Twitter, follow at Ramble On Blog on Twitter, and talk to me, have a conversation with me. Like I said, the Facebook page has been fairly alive this week. One of the points I wanted to get to, Zepp Cowboy. Go to Zepp Cowboy. I'll have to link up to it. Zepp Cowboy at blogspot.com, I believe, is Wyatt. Wyatt is he's been a listener since episode 1. He's after episode 1, he emailed me, and I've actually known through Led Zeppelin email list and stuff. I've known Wyatt since before I even did this. But he pointed out that I used the phrase Celtic this week, and he went and checked it out, whether it was Celtic or Celtic. And my only defense, and the truth is, I'll go both ways in this. Sometimes, some weeks I'll say Celtic, some weeks I'll say Celtic. I can tell you that my grumpy Irish father, who, if he doesn't know it, it's not meant to be known. Let's put it that way. He's, if you want to see what he looks like, go to the dictionary, look up know-it-all. That's my grumpy Irish father. And he will assure you that nobody says it in Ireland, that, in fact, only those stupid Americans, stupid Americans, would dare say Celtic, that it's a North American thing, it's not an Irish thing, that the Irish would never, ever, would not know what you were talking about, etc., etc. If you actually want an entertaining Saturday night, bring a bottle of whiskey to my house. One of the weekends when my dad is down visiting. He likes Canadian whiskey, not Irish whiskey, in case you're thinking. He doesn't drink Guinness either. There's a reason they kicked him out of Ireland. But, by the way, battery's going down really bad on this video. We may not get much. In which case, I have to find a new solution. I'm not buying batteries every week. Yeah, so come on down, bring the whiskey, get a couple in them with some rye, 2, maybe 3, maybe start with 2, and then tell them, no, you disagree. You think it's Celtic. And it'll be an entertaining hour, I promise. So I tend to go Celtic. I actually think Celtic. I hear it Celtic all the time, on the radio and stuff. But I've had it a bit beat into me Celtic, so I kind of intentionally went Celtic when I talked about it last week. And it's funny because I did think about it. Oh, maybe it's Celtic. I know I'm not sure exactly what the way it's supposed to be. I just tell you why I go that way. The next time we're talking about it, I could very well say Celtic. Don't email me and start going on and telling me I just use both. I do. It's one of those things. I never heard Celtic until the 90s. It was always Celtic as far as I knew. I'd never even heard of it. And I always assumed it was one of those newer interpretations of words that we get into these days. Like the one that's always struck me is condoms are now condoms. And Adidas shoes. When I was a kid, we had Adidas shoes. Now they're Adidas. And same with Celtic. I always assumed it was one of those things. But anyway, there's my answer for that. But yes, pitch in. There's a conversation going on about it right now on Facebook. Go over to Facebook, join the conversation. What do you think? Is it Celtic or Celtic? Should I be shot for saying Celtic or raised on the shoulders? And promise you, my dad would tell you it's one or the other. It's, so we introed with Little Maggie from Glastonbury. According to Classic Rock Magazine today, or yesterday, that is the world premiere of Robert Plant's Little Maggie. Never played it before. You didn't hear it last week when he released the video. You did not hear it if you went to the New Orleans Jazz Festival. Never happened. Glastonbury. That's where they premiered the new track, Little Maggie. Truth is, he's played it about 10, 15 times already. He played it in April at New Orleans Jazz Festival, and he's been playing it ever since. So, but that was Little Maggie from Glastonbury. If you were lucky enough, you caught Robert's Glastonbury set this week. It's been on BBC, recorded it, broadcast it. They have it on their player, or BBC player, but those of us outside of the country can't watch it. Somebody put it on YouTube. It's already been taken down, so on and so forth. So I haven't seen it, but if you live in certain parts of the world, you can see it. The other one was, again, go to the Facebook page. There is a link to an interview, fairly long interview at an Irish radio station down in Dublin. The guy's a bit funny. Irish guys will say anything, right? And he says a few things. He actually takes Robert a bit to task. Not a lot. Does not hard on him. But like Robert goes on about, well, I like changing the songs around. Kind of like Bob Dylan. And the guy says, I got to tell you, I hate what Bob Dylan does. Then he says, I like the way you do it. But you know the difference, Robert? Hey, Robert. It's me and you right here looking at the screen. You know the difference between you and Bob Dylan? Bob Dylan wrote the music and the words. You change the other guy's part and keep yours the same and call it the same song. You reinterpret the other musician's part. If you played Black Dog and sang different words, that would kind of be reinterpreting your part, but you're reinterpreting John Paul Jones's lick or Jimmy Page's lick. Bob Dylan wrote both the music and the song, so it's fair game when he does whatever the hell he wants with it. That's, to me, there's a certain rudeness about the way he just shifts the other guys. His part never changes, but he's not a jukebox. And I wasn't going to go on a Robert riff either. This was not in the plans today. And I'm actually not. It's a good little interview, and he's he handles the question of playing the Zeppelin stuff. He handles it great. And he really does say, look, I spent the 70s. I considered the music a responsibility in the 70s. I did that. Now I'm having fun. He actually kind of says that, and I think it's that's fair. But it's a good interview. It's a long interview. He talks about the new album. He talks about playing the Zeppelin. He talks about doing the festival circuits. He talks about it all. So it's worth going. Go to the Facebook page. It's linked to there. I will try to remember to repost it onto Twitter. I'll tweet it on. I'll tweet it on the Twitter. And I'll even try to remember to get over to the Google Plus. For those of you who follow on Google Plus, I will try. All right, this week is Led Zeppelin III. Didn't get to it last week. We're going to get to it this week. There, my friends, is the music book. I have been learning some songs off it. And really kind of relearning some songs off it at this stage. Some stuff I learned years ago, but learned improperly or whatever. I also have, for your edification, the 8-track. And I have decided I'm going to do a podcast on set list changes between 8-tracks and albums. Because I have, I think, all the 8-tracks. And this is another one is different. So there's differences. Cassette, got the cassette. I have about 4 cassettes. We'll talk cassettes when we do the differences. And, of course, an original LP. Not original, mid-70s. Mid to late 70s. LP. Gatefold, as you can see. The thingy spins. I'm going to get that close. And I'm, if you're not on YouTube, this is the boring bit. And in rougher shape than Led Zeppelin II, I think. Oh boy, I played the hell out of this. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how I played the hell out of this, the poor album. And it owes me nothing. I can tell you that right now. And I look forward to getting a new vinyl copy in about 4 weeks when I have a birthday. I know you're all sitting at home wondering, what should we get you for the birthday? Pitch in the box set for Zeppelin III. That is nice. That would do it. I said this before. I used to. My first podcast that I listened to was Drew, and it was a husband and wife thing. And something in Drew and somebody. And anyway, for a while it was interesting, and they were kind of a little nuts. But then I realized 2 things happened. One is I realized they weren't just kind of a little nuts on the podcast. They were nuts. They were Looney Tunes. As in, somebody should get these people help. Kind of just nuts. And I think it was. And I think I've said this before. I think it was at Christmas. They did a podcast, and they did a Yule podcast because they don't celebrate Christmas. They celebrate Yule on the 21st. And how do you celebrate Yule? Well, with presents and a tree, and you decorate the tree, and you put lights in the house, and you either celebrate Christmas or don't celebrate Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, then don't. And you realize they were being serious, and that's at that point I thought, these guys are squirrely. But the other thing was they discovered you could make a list on Amazon of stuff you want, and people could buy the stuff for you. Without having to know your address and stuff. And they started, the podcast became friggin' practically begging for stuff. And they spent half their podcast just talking about stuff people had sent them off the list and whatnot. And it became this really kind of, and I very quickly turned off after that. It just became a buy me stuff fest. So I joke. What I'm getting at is I'm kidding. Don't think, I like that podcast, I better go buy him Led Zeppelin III, the box set. I have a family for that. And they say they love me. You got to give them a chance once a year to prove it. So I haven't got CDs on this. Unlike the other 2, I have not got the CDs for Zeppelin 3. I have not got the LPs. Around here, I was at the store today. They still haven't got the LPs. I have Led Zeppelin 1, the LP, deluxe edition, coming from my daughter for Father's Day. They haven't had it in the store yet. They have not. They have the box sets. So up here in Canada, we're not getting it at all. The vinyl. And this is HMV. It's big chain. Now maybe in Toronto, maybe some places have it, but out here where the sunshine blows our blues away, no dice, no. And it's a good thing we got the sunshine because we don't have the Led Zeppelin vinyl. But that's okay because I'm hoping they do have the box set, and I'm hoping to get the box for my birthday. And at that point, I will talk about it some. I will talk about the set itself as well as how the music compares across the formats and stuff. So I'm not really. I do have it though on, as with the others. I do have it on the iPhone. Do have it, the iTunes version of the complete deluxe edition. Have listened to it fairly regularly. Have opinions on it. So. But I love Led Zeppelin 3. This is why I'm a Led Zeppelin fan, is Led Zeppelin 3. And I said this the other week, Led Zeppelin 4 is a good album. Led Zeppelin 4 is a classic, probably one of the maybe the greatest album ever. Physical Graffiti and Presence I've grown to love a lot over the last couple of years. Physical Graffiti is another. In Through the Outdoors is a favorite from years back. And the first album is a good rock and bluesy album. The second one's got a whole lot of love and stuff. But this third one just devastated me. Devastated me. Now, you got to understand, I listened to not just rock. I listened to the classic rock, the stuff that had up-tempo but had a groove to it, right? So I was not a Black Sabbath fan. I was not a Aerosmith guy or a lot of the harder stuff of the 70s. And this is the mid-70s, although I've seen Ted Nugent in any number of times. I don't know any of his albums. I've seen him every 6 months for 3 years, I think, for 3 or 4 years. It's just the way it went. But bands more locally, like Triumph, I liked. And then Yes, and I started with BTO. Worked from there, but even the Stones, sort of, I liked it, didn't like it at the time. I like them more now than I did then, I think. The Who, I was bigger on than the Stones. But I also listened to classical music. I listened to classical guitar music, particularly. Loved Yes, because I love Steve Howe's classical guitar stuff as much as anything. And notice Triumph, they threw some classical guitar, some Spanish guitar. So loved that kind of music. Loved playing acoustic guitar. Loved listening to an acoustic guitar. I was a Jim Croce fan. And I know there are people that gag at that, but I still like Jim Croce. So I like that acoustic music. I love, absolutely adore, actually, acoustic music, acoustic guitar music. Done really well. Whether it's classical, whether it's, a mandolin. I'm just so... and so when I get to Led Zeppelin III, and I've seen the song as the same, so I've seen, I'm blown away by Jimmy Page guitar, but I'm blown away by Bonzo as a drummer. I get the kind of electricity of the band. Then I start feeding into the albums. And 4 is great. 4, it's got Stairway to Heaven. Stairway to Heaven I like. And you start digging into things like Going to California. John Black, right? Well, Black Dog Rock and Roll. And Battle of Evermore, that sort of thing. Then you go backwards to 3, and 3 just floored me. And the funny thing is, it starts with Immigrant Song. Hey, a couple of weeks ago we talked about asserting your presence with authority. Remember that? How's Immigrant Song for asserting your presence with authority? And this is, as the critics said, the band's gone soft. They've gone soft, and they started with Immigrant Song. Never liked Immigrant Song. It's one of those ones that, as in later years, I've grown to appreciate what they actually did there. Immigrant Song struck me as the band. Whenever people say to me, "Oh, you're a Zeppelin fan, okay? Did you hear Black Sabbath doing a tour?" And I think, how did you make that connection? That, to me, there's no connection whatsoever between Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. It's an idiotic leap. And the reason people make that leap is a song like Immigrant Song. Immigrant Song makes them go, oh, Led Zeppelin's a hard rock band. Whole lot of love, Immigrant Song. The band hates the phrase heavy metal. Immigrant Song probably has more to do with them being called heavy metal band. All sorts of people know this band as Immigrant Song. I have a hard time getting Led Zeppelin through my wife. And I know Immigrant Song is one of the reasons. I know that. And I know when my dad, as a kid, when my dad would say, they're just, sounds like a bunch of monkeys. He's screaming. He's not singing. I could never defend Immigrant Song against that. I could now. And I'll tell you what I know now. What I know now is it's a song about, it's a song about the Vikings. But if you listen to the beat of the rhythm, the pounding of the rhythm, I mean, it's meant to sound like Vikings coming paddling up the shore. They're in attack mode. That's what it's meant to sound like. And it's actually phenomenal when you think of it that way, when you listen to it with that ear. That because Vikings were known to be, it was a terrifying thing when they were coming up the river. You'd be in your little village and they were known to have a howl, and they were known to be loud, and they came driving up in a war party, and what did it sound like? And if you want to imagine what it sounded like, it probably sounded something like Immigrant Song. So that's where what am I saying here? What am I thinking? That's what Immigrant Song is, and it's a phenomenal song of hard rock. That kind of hard rock songs, it's amongst the best because it does that, because it's recreating a sound. I won't say from nature, but possibly a potentially historic sound, right? Nobody really knows what these guys sounded like, so we can only imagine. But then after Immigrant Song goes on Friends. This is a pretty little song. With lovely little words, and I'm a sucker for sappy lyrics. I really am a sucker for that sort of thing. And then it rolls into Celebration Day. Celebration Day, of course, if you watch the song remains the same, if you know the song remains the same, and I remember I started out from the song remains the same. I kind of went the song remains the same and backwards to a degree. Skipping a bit over Physical Graffiti because my brother had got Physical Graffiti around that Christmas. I think the same Christmas I got the song remains the same. Yeah, something like that. And I wasn't nuts on it. Like some of the songs, but not all the songs. Thoughts, I've changed my opinion on that album too, and we'll get to that when we get to that. Hey, that interview with Robert Plant, he says they have some phenomenal stuff from the Physical Graffiti sessions. He says that's what he's most excited about, is the Physical Graffiti sessions. And Jimmy said, right, that he's really he's most excited about the Presence sessions, the stuff they got. Some remixes, their alternate mixes they have there. So we have some really good stuff coming up. Okay, so Celebration Day, is rock and roll to Celebration Day. Don't like the album version as much as the live version, but you know the song and you're going to go, okay, this is great. Then, Since I've Been Loving You, Jaws. Oh my goodness gracious. And I just turned my back to the camera and the microphone in case you're wondering what happened. And I have my reason. And I'm not going to go with it. I meant to do this before. I had had the writer, one of the very first podcasts, I had a fellow in who wrote a book. He shared the writing of the book with his partner. And I know him because I'm Facebook friends with him. I'm still over here, I'm talking over here. How do you like this, eh? Anyway. And Ralph Hewitt. Hewlett, I think it is. So Ralph came on and we talked about the show, and he was great. Very gracious guest. Loved to have him on. I meant to get him on again. Actually, talk some other stuff. But there's a line in their book, in Ralph Hewlett's book. Do I have the internet up? I do not have the internet up, so I'm not even going to bother trying. But there's a line in the book, something like that, if you're wondering who's the best guitarist in the world, listen to the solo on Since I've Been Loving You and wonder no more. Something along those lines. And I couldn't agree more. I simply could not agree more. That intro is devastating. The guitar playing throughout is miraculous. The solo, when he rocks into that solo, playing 64th, I've had the music in front of me, and it's like 64th notes, and you go, oh my goodness gracious. It's so phenomenal. It's so breathtaking, emotional. I to this day, I can't get over listening to Since I've Been Loving You in the right environment, in the right place. I mean, driving down the road, it comes on, and your wife's talking to the right. Or, yeah, I'm at work, and I'm kind of half paying attention. No big deal. It's just Since I've Been Loving You. But if you sit down and, just put on the record, or if I'm in the car by myself and I crank it up and allow myself to really listen to it, to this day, it's devastating. It's so good. It's so impactful. It's so powerful. It may be the greatest rock and roll song ever. It's just so knock your socks off good. And as a 15, 16-year-old, 14-year-old just starting out on guitar, I can tell you, I thought it would be unthinkable to be able to play like that. Now I kind of can now. I can play most of the song actually. Having never played it in a band, I've never learned the solo properly. Certainly the intro I've learned. Certainly most of the rest of the stuff. But until you're actually playing with other guys, you need to really learn it, memorize it. You don't bother with, okay, I got to learn that 64th note run and that sort of thing. So, but I can certainly do it now to some degree of competence. To some degree of competence. Like a report card, the kids come home, right? Brian can play guitar with some degree of confidence. But at the time, I thought nobody could ever play a guitar like that. It was so, and I, it was almost couldn't get past it, couldn't get over it. Then it outros into Out on the Tiles. Out on the Tiles I actually knew before I got into Led Zeppelin. It was one, and now 3 must have been around somewhere. I went out with a girl, I think, and she liked that song particularly. And we would actually listen to this album a bit. But it was, you'd skip songs and stuff, right? And Out of the Tiles was the one we used to love. We used to sing together. So it's just a happy, bouncy, happy, lovely song of a kind that wasn't necessarily common at the time. That's the thing. It was a kind of a downer period in history. And people weren't doing. You were either a pop band, right? We joked about the Partridge Family the other week. You're either a pop band doing Come On Get Happy, it's magic, or you were a rock band doing Since I've Been Loving You, or you're a folk band doing Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. You know what I mean? You know, the Stones were doing Street Fighting Man, the Who were doing Won't Get Fooled Again. People weren't doing happy, uppity music unless you were just a pissy ass little pop band. And then out came, there's Led Zeppelin doing this poppy little, but they were doing, and like they often did when they rolled into just doing a pop song or just doing a nice little song, happy little song, or a little ditty of some sort, they did it better than other people. And it's one of the things that makes them so, their pissy ass little songs are so good. Out on the Tiles is a great little song. What a great guitar lick that is. That is a great, and that's what I've been, if I had a pick, I'd play it for you, but I'm not seeing a pick. But that whole, that's one I've actually been learning. Guitar up, by the way. Yeah, that whole kind of, trying to finger pick it with the right hand. Sorry, but it's a little sloppy. But that's just a great little run, great little lick, great happy little song. And then at the end, and this was one of those guitar player things. I got the book eventually. I got a book on, and you could read the notes, and I kind of worked through Out on the Tiles. But at the end, he goes into this whole other thing, and this is one of these Zeppelin things. Now it's really just. It's just an E chord. E to a G, E to a G, E to a G, E, A, G, right? So all it is, he's playing the open E note there, and he's just kind of... But it didn't sound like anything anybody else was doing. It's just a simple thing. It's really easy to play. But it's one of those things you listen to and goes, how's he even doing that? That's a bizarre sounding thing. I promise that's the last of the guitar. And then, there's side one. Oh, Jesus Christ. We just went from Immigrant Song, from Vikings Raiding to Nice Little Friends to Celebration Day, another kind of another happy poppy type song, although very different than anything else out there, to Since I've Been Loving You, to Out on the Tiles. What a bounce around. Oh, by the way, this is their soft album. The band's gone soft. Immigrant Song, Celebration Day, Since I've Been Loving You, Out on the Tiles. Band's gone soft. That's what, like, Rolling Stone was saying. The next time you're reading Rolling Stone and think, they're right. Yeah, right. Never. Not then. Don't give them the credit now. So anyway, side 2. So then you flip it over. Side 2. Gallows Pole. Loved Gallows. Gallows Pole is another one of those ones that just... It's hard to get over. It's so layered and so textured and so simple. And you understood right away, this is an old song. This wasn't, even at a 14-year-old, oh, this is an old folk song or something. This is something. This isn't, this wasn't written in 1970. This was written in 1870, right? You talk about the hangman, who, there's no hangman anymore. There's no riding or anything like that. So you understood it was an old one. But they did something with it that was so folk, but so rock. And that's, when they pulled out the acoustic guitars, they never stopped being a rock band. And it's one of the most uniquely interesting things about them. They never stopped having that kind of energy, the drive that a rock band has. Tangerine, now Tangerine falls back a little. It's a nicer little song. Okay, then maybe they lost a bit of that rock band drive. Okay, there's always, but 99% of the time they had that. When didn't they have the rock band drive? It's an interesting question, right? Like Tangerine, Thank You, Going to California, All My Love, Brown Rare maybe. That's probably pretty close to it, right? That they didn't have that real push. That's the way. So we got a nice little step in the minute. Side 2 goes Gallows Pole, Tangerine. That's the way Bronner stopped. That is, by the way, the soft part of the album. That's the way. It's always been one of those. It's so pretty. It's so layered. It's so. And I love Robert Plant's words in it, and I have no idea what he's singing about. But it feels very romantic. It's always felt to me very romantic. Very touching. But I have no idea. It could be. Something's going way over my head there too. And always has. But it's such a unique sounding guitar part. It's such a pretty sounding guitar part. And the end, now it's in a different tuning, so I can't pull up my guitar and just show you. But at the end, they do some stuff at the end with the guitars. It's so intrinsically simple, yet so remarkable that somebody actually thought of it. It's one of those sorts of things where you go, how did he ever come up with this? But in fact, as you're playing in that tuning, your hand kind of wants to fall in. It's easy to play. It really fits in the hand nicely. But it's a unique pattern anyway. It's one of those things. Bronner Stomp, I've always dug it. This is a rock guitarist playing an acoustic like a rock guitar, right? This is the fancy picking. Always dug this song. Always have. And did not learn until not that many years ago that it was about his dog. Sang it to a few girls, none of which have married me. That tells you everything you want to know, maybe. Of course, maybe I wasn't into marrying them. We'll go with that. And then, of course, finish off with Hats Off to Roy Harper. I did a few months back, I mentioned, what songs did you think were maybe weaker songs in the Zeppelin catalog? And Hats Off to Roy Harper came up. I like it. I've always liked that, the old bluesy stuff, and I got, even then, what they were trying to do. And I think if you listen to Keys of the Highway, Trouble on My Mind, which is from the same sessions, you get a better picture of what they were up to, what they were doing, what they were trying to do. But it's a devastatingly good album. To me, Hats Off to Roy Harper just caps it in such an interesting way. They've done the power rock. They did the unbelievable blues. They did the almost everything you could do with an acoustic band or an acoustic guitar, right? Gallows Pole, the old folk song with banjos and mandolins. That's the way. The pretty little song, Bronner Stomp, the country song, Tangerine, the ballad. Friends, kind of the straight folk song. The modern folk, which compared to Gallows Pole, is the old folk. That sort of thing. You got a happy song, you got a blues song, you get the power song, and then Hats Off to Roy Harper comes in with this old blues. It tops the album nicely. You know, there's at no point in this album do you think that kind of sounds a bit like the other song, right? Whereas, just as an example, and I'm not implying, you know, but Black Dog to Rock and Roll can be a bit interchangeable. You know, they have a very similar sound to them, similar tempo, similar feel, similar guitar sound. Same goes Battle of Evermore, Stairway to Heaven, which you know has been Dave Lewis and Type It Loose on the 40th anniversary of that album talked about it being Battle of Evermore being like a prelude to Stairway to Heaven. They fit together very well. Nothing on this album fits together very well. It's not a comprehensive unit as an album, right? It's a collection of songs more than that, and that's maybe its downfall. But at no point do you go, you know, you don't say Immigrant Songs like Celebration Day or Celebration Day, and in the titles I compared, but I only compare it because they're up-tempo, happy songs, not because they sound anything similar. Gallows Pole and Friends are folk songs, but one's a modern folk, is kind of an Arlo Guthrie style folk song, or Crosby, Stills, Nash more like. Gallows Pole is an old folk song. They've given a modern touch to it, but it still feels like an old song. Tangerine's a ballad. That's the Way is more not a ballad so much as, I don't know, maybe more like a traditional ballad, a story song. You know, it's just an album that's so much going on with it, and I do think it's a transitional album from 2 to 4, and 4 is a more complete unit, right? It's the Black Dog Rock and Roll meld together, the Prelude and Stairway, Battle of Evermore and Stairway, you know, and side 2 is maybe more song, a little less. But I mean, side 1's, I've had this conversation before. Side 1 of 4 begins and ends with just Robert Plant singing. As if you take out that little echoey thing that they do at the beginning of Black Dog. But it begins with, hey, hey, Mama said the way you move. It ends with, and she's buying a Stairway to Heaven. That's the album. So that's, you know, it starts, it builds, it crescendos, and we'll get to it when we get to it. But 3 doesn't do that, and that may be why 4 is the better album. But I think the songs on this are just so devastatingly good, and there are moments on this album that are better than anything anybody's ever done. I think it really is that good, that close to brilliant, and they hit brilliant, you know, 9 months later or whenever they recorded 4. But they were touching on it here. I really honestly think that, and yeah, this album is so good. Okay, so then we have the extras, the stuff that's not on the album, the bonus material, and the bonus material goes this way: Immigrant Song alternate mix, Friends no vocal, Celebration Day alternate mix, Since I've Been Loving You rough mix, Bathroom Sound no vocal, Gallows Pole rough mix, That's the Way rough mix, Jennings Farm Blues, Keys to the Highway, Trouble on My Mind rough mix. Immigrant Song alternate mix, got some different stuff going on in the guitar, particularly effects. In terms of effects, Robert does some different vocally stuff, but it's not entirely different than Immigrant Song. I wouldn't say this is and I've had this discussion a bit online with some people, but I think there's nothing here that's comprehensively must-have to my mind, other than Since I've Been Loving You. We'll get there. But Immigrant Songs, it's an interesting, it's a historical look, it's an interesting look, it's an interesting retake of the song. Same goes for most of the alternate mixes. They're interesting, they have some minor differences. If you're listening superficially, you might not even pick up the differences. Gallows Pole is different in that it sounds like it's the basic track and then the different vocal. But it doesn't have, you know, the banjo coming in and that sort of stuff. It's missing a lot of the layering that went on. But Friends, no vocal, so it's just it's the track. It's the track, no vocal. It's interesting to listen to some of the stuff that's going on in the drums there. It's interesting to hear what's going on. When I get to Friends in my guitar book, I will no doubt pull that out because it'll be easier to learn the guitar part. But yeah, Celebration Day, alternate mix. It's just a different variation in Celebration Day again. It's the same but different. There are some minor differences. Since I've Been Loving You is very different. This is called a rough mix instead of an alternate mix. This is probably closer to an alternate mix, really. It's a completely different take. And it's a different solo, and it's got some very different vocal stuff, and it's very interesting to listen to where they were going with it. And it's almost, you could imagine them, if they had put this on the album and you never heard the source that you know, I think I would probably still be as blown away at the time. I think it would still be as big a number with Zeppelin fans as it is now. It is an exceptional version. You could have gone one or the other on this and made the fans happy. And I'm glad. I want to have the bonus material on this album just for that alone. It's really, really good. Okay, Bathroom Sounds is Out on the Tiles without the vocals. Again, it's interesting. Bonzo's doing different stuff on this, and it's a great little guitar line, but it's also verse, chorus type of song. So it's not, like Since I've Been Loving You, the guitar does something different. The band does something different each time through. They don't in Out on the Tile. So it's interesting for a minute or minute and a half. It's not interesting for 3 minutes to me. Gallows Pole rough mix, basically a variation. Again, a little more, little less instrumentation, just a little more held back than the album. A little less stuff, a little less produced is the word I was looking for. Same goes for That's the Way. That's the Way has some different mandolin stuff on it, some slightly different vocal takes. Got the same feel, and quite nice. And I'm really going to have to, it's one of these, I'm almost going to have to go, especially the Immigrant Song, Celebration Day, Since I've Been Loving You, Gallows Pole, That's the Way, and listen to them 4 or 5 times, just those songs, and see how I feel about them. Because you kind of hear them, I haven't done, I haven't got the album, I haven't read, so I haven't sat with the headphones and really studied this. I kind of listen to it at work, I kind of listen to it in the car. So I think they need more time and effort on my behalf. And I'm hoping to get some of that time in the nearish future. And Jennings Farm Blues is Bron-Y-Aur Stomp electric version. It was originally tried out as an electric song. And this is it without the vocals. And I wish the vocals were on it. I think I would love this if it had the vocals. That's what I think. I think if Robert was singing on this, even if he was singing something slightly different than what we know, I think I would love it. And then Keys to the Highway, Trouble on My Mind, another good reason for owning the deluxe material. This is a great song. I love this. I think I like it more than Hats Off to Roy Harper. I suspect the reason it didn't make it onto the album is because it's another acoustic song, and they didn't want to go 5 acoustic songs on that. But that would have been actually a very interesting thing to do, to take that second side and make it all acoustic. And that bluesy acoustic is the last song for Keys to the Highway, Trouble on My Mind. It would have been very interesting. And I think maybe might make it more of a comprehensive album, the way we talked about it. Had they done that? I think. But you got to respect the decisions they made in 1970, and they don't know, and they're just trying to get an album out the door, right? This one of the things we, as fans, can often sit around going, oh, well, maybe if they'd have done that, maybe they'd done this. These were working musicians just trying to get songs out the door. But I can't say it enough how much I like this. Okay, so I also have, as I pointed out, 8-track cassette. 8-track on cassette. 8-track on cassette. Cassette, same running order as the album. 8-track change. We talked about this last week, and it's an interesting thing to look at. Talked about it 2 weeks ago, I think, with 2, right? Here's how the track listing goes. And excuse me if you're watching a video. I have the thing, I'm holding it way out here. You can see. I'm actually holding it way down. I don't have my glasses. And it's a bit of a darkish room. Immigrant Song, Bron-Y-Aur Stomp, that's different, Friends. Celebration Day, Out on the Tiles, Hats Off to Roy Harper. Gallows Pole, That's the Way, Since I've Been Loving You, Tangerine. So, to make it simple, it starts with Immigrant Song, yes. Between Friends and Immigrant Song, you get Bron-Y-Aur Stomp. Then you get Celebration Day and Out on the Tiles. So Since I've Been Loving You gets taken out. right? And hats off to where Harper gets moved up out in the tiles. Just lost the video feed, folks. Just lost the video now. This is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. We made it longer. But if you watched it on YouTube and then came to this, it's almost over. Yeah, and then so Since I've Been Loving You, Tangerine, and I'm going to have to listen to this. I'm interested in the Gallows Pole, That's the Way, track 3. Gallows Pole, That's the Way. And that may be a very good, just Since I've Been Loving You. Gallows Pole, That's the Way, Since I've Been Loving You. That's an interesting run. But that's how that reads on the 8-track. That's how they released it at the time, on the 8-track. Okay, I'm going to wrap at that. That's it for Ramble On Radio, episode 66, no third 6. Check rambleonradio.com for notes on this week's podcast, Led Zeppelin news, reviews, and any links I might mention during the show. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook. Conversations are going on right now. Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. Leave a review, listen on Spreaker, be sure to follow, and check it out at Ramble On Radio on YouTube. You can get, up until about a minute and a half ago, you can watch the video. Last week's video is posted, by the way. It's up there. Thanks for listening to Ramble On Radio, episode 66, and keep it coolin', babies.
I mean, if I listen to it now, I go, whoa. Oh, I know it's a bit okay. Trust an injury side.
And I do say, what ho, it's Brian again. Forgot to mention, not going to be doing a podcast the next 2 weeks. 67 will come approximately the 24th of July will be the date of the next podcast. So have a good couple of weeks. I'm taking a few weeks off. I'm doing R&R. I'm going to refresh, rewind, and I'll be back at you on or about July 24th. I will talk to you then. Have a good July, folks. And as always, when I do these sorts of things, thank you so much for listening through the year. Thank you so much for listening the times you do. And just enjoy yourself. It's a great time. It's a great time of the year. It's a great time to be alive, and enjoy.
Switch off the internet.